This is lesson 15 of Introduction to Biblical Hebrew, Kittel and Hoffer. In this lesson, we'll discuss the PL affix and the PL prefix.
Let's try pronouncing our sentence. Vayomer Chizkiyahu el Yeshayahu Tov Devar Adonai Asher Debarta. Vayomer Chizkiyahu el Yeshayahu Tov Devar Adonai Asher Debarta. Now we can do actually quite a bit of this sentence without too much work. So Vayomer is our old friend, and he said. Chizkiyahu is a proper name, Hezekiah. Yeshayahu, also a proper name, Isaiah. Notice the Yahu forms in each of these proper names. This is from the divine name, Adonai, or Yahweh. So when you see Yahu or Yah endings on names, these are divine patronymics. So Hezekiah and Isaiah. Chizkiyahu, Yeshayahu. You also know this preposition el, meaning to. So if we put everything in place, then the first half of our sentence, and Hezekiah said to Isaiah. Now let's look at this phrase, Tov Devar Adonai. We can begin with the construct chain Devar Adonai. You know this is a construct because the word Devar, which is normally pointed with two comet seam, is here pointed in a reduced fashion, indicating the construct relationship. The makef between Devar and Adonai also gives us some indication, but as you know, it is an inconsistent marker. So, Devar Adonai, the word of the Lord. Now you know from vocabulary that Tov means good. So here's what our parts of this phrase mean, and the question is, how are they related to each other? You will recall that a few lessons ago we talked about attributive and predicative adjectives. You remember that the attributive relationship, the adjective comes after the noun, and it agrees in definiteness. Here we have predicative adjectives, which generally come before the noun, and they do not agree in definiteness. So here the Tov comes before Devar Adonai, and as you know, Devar Adonai is definite because Adonai is proper name, and good, lacking the definite article, is indefinite. So this is a predicative relationship and would be translated, the word of the Lord is good. Predicative means that the adjective supplies the predicate of the sentence. So one has to supply a to be verb. Incidentally, if you wanted to say the good word of the Lord, you would say Devar Adonai Hatov, making the adjective come after and be definite. So, Tov Devar Adonai, the word of the Lord is good. Devar Adonai Hatov, the good word of the Lord. So here's where we are so far. And Hezekiah said to Isaiah, the word of the Lord is good. Now we have our familiar asher. Of course, this is the relative pronoun. In this case, it probably means that because it's referring to a word. So the word of the Lord, that. And so what remains is our verb debarta. So let's take a look. Debarta, first debarta, then we have the root fairly clear here, devar. The stem is indicated by the dagesh in the second root radical, as well as the hirek under the first root radical. These are the clear markers of the PL. The form, well, we have an affix sticking out the end, so it's an affix. Person, gender, and number. You recognize the ta affix from our previous lessons on the affix. The tav with a little bow tie is the second masculine singular ending. If we wanted to translate, then you spoke. You being masculine singular. You spoke.
And this is what our entire sentence looks like all together.
We can now offer a translation. And Hezekiah said to Isaiah, "The word of the Lord that you spoke is good." All right, let's look at our affix endings, and then we'll look at our PL affix. Affix endings, as you remember from last time, are blank in the third masculine singular, then a, ta, t, ti, u, tem, ten, nu. Remember, the third masculine and third feminine plural are the same. We can refer to these as the third common plural. Now our PL affix in the strong root. Picade, picada, picadta, picad, picadti, picadu, picadu, picadtem, picadten, picadnu. Here are our standard endings. These are the same in every stem. Atatati, utemtennu. It's the vowel pattern that makes this distinctively PL. So let's look at that. The first thing to notice, of course, is that in every form we have a dagesh in the second root radical. This is the clearest marker of the PL, and the first thing you should look for. Dagesh in the second root radical. The second clear marker of the PL is this hirek under the first root radical. This is from our word, PL, gives you what these vowels are going to be. So hirek under the first root radical, dagesh in the second root radical, you're looking at PL affix. The vowel under the second root radical is a tzere in the third masculine singular. This is where we get PAL from, picade, PAL, but it changes in the other forms. So in second masculine singular and second feminine first common singular, it's a patach. It's also a patach in the second masculine and feminine plural, as well as the first common plural. So the tzere is only indicated in the third masculine singular. Otherwise, it's a tzere. Sorry, it's a patach. Now we do have three forms in which it reduces all the way to the shva. You should be able to surmise the reason. This is because our affix is a vowel, begins with a vowel in these three forms. So if the affix is a vowel affix, then our thematic vowel under our second root radical will reduce to shva. We saw this also in the cow. One adaptation of the PL affix is when our second root radical is a guttural or resh. You can imagine this is a problem because gutturals and resh should not take the dagesh, that is the indicator of the PL. So here we see an example, be'rach. Let's look at the rest of the paradigm. Be'racha, be'rachta, be'racht, be'rachti, be'rachu, be'rachu, be'rachtem, be'rachten, be'rachnu. Notice that there is no dagesh in the resh. This is what we expect. The fact that the dagesh cannot appear in the resh causes compensatory lengthening of the vowel under the first root radical from hirek to tzere. So instead of picade, we have be'rach. Notice this patach under the resh. This form sometimes is also be'rech. The patach here is because resh prefers a patach-rich environment. In the other forms, we expect the patach. So this is just standard. And then in these three forms again, we have the schwa because of the endings. So this is the PL affix, essentially no dagesh in the second root radical, compensatory lengthening under the first root radical. Now let's look at the prefix. First, let's look back at all of the prefixes and complements that indicate the prefix form in all the stems. Third masculine singular is yod, and the third masculine plural is yod with a shurek prefix complement. You've been seeing this now for several weeks. The rest of the paradigm, tav in the third masculine and third feminine singular and second masculine singular, tav with a yod complement in the second feminine singular, aleph in the first common singular, then tav with a na complement in the third feminine plural, tav with an u complement in the second masculine plural, tav with a na complement in the second feminine plural, and then a nun in the first common plural. So these prefixes and prefix complements are the indicators of the prefix form in all of the stems. The way that we tell what stem then is the vowel pattern. So let's look at the specifics of the PL prefix. Here we have our forms: yufaked, tufaked, tufaked, tufakdi, afaked, yufakdu, tufakedna, tufakdu, tufakedna, nufaked. Here we see the prefixes and the prefix complements, which are standard to all of the stems. Let's look then at the specifics of the prefix and the PL. Here you'll notice that in every form we have a dagesh in the second root radical. This was also the case in the affix. So this is the clearest marker of the PL, is a dagesh in the second root radical. Second thing you'll notice is that in all forms we have a schwa under the prefix itself. We learned this actually quite some time ago when you learned vaidaber, in which when you see the prefix you look for the schwa, and then that is an indicator of the PL. So this is simply extending something that you already know. Look at the prefix. If there's a schwa under and a dagesh in the second root radical, you're looking at a PL prefix. Notice in the first common singular, afaked, you have a composite schwa, a patak schwa, instead of a simple schwa. This is just because gutturals prefer a patak-rich environment. We'll see this quite often. Also, in every form, the vowel under the first root radical is a patak, a. So this is a highly regular form. Yufaked. So yufa, tufa, 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 afa, yufa, tufa, 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 nufa. It's always the same. We then have a tsere under the second root radical in nearly every form. So yufaked, tufaked, and so on. This is the typical form. You do have three in which you see a schwa rather than a tsere. And of course you can surmise the reason for this is because you have complements that are vowels. So once again, a vowel complement at the end of the word causes the theme vowel under the second root radical to reduce to a schwa. Once again, as in the PL affix, the PL prefix also it has compensatory lengthening for middle gutturals and resh. So we can look back at our again at our example root barach. Here we see the third masculine singular PL affix of barach, which is yevarech. Notice that there is no dagesh in the resh. That is because dageshim, gutturals, and resh do not like to take dageshim. As a result, we have a compensatory lengthening of the patach that we expect here, as in yufaked, which normally is a patach, we have it compensatorily lengthened to a kametz. So yevarech. This is the only change that takes place in the middle guttural of a PL prefix. Is this lack of a dagesh in the second root radical and the compensatory lengthening of the vowel under the first root radical. So we can just follow this variation all the way through. Tevarech, tevarech, tevarechi, avarech. Yavarachu, tevarechna, tevarachu, tevarechna, nevarech. We've already seen the meanings of the PL, but let's just review. A PL can be factative. This usage is very similar to a causative, and so if it's helpful to think of it as causative, then that is fine. It is actually taking an intransitive verb and making it transitive. In English, we could think of this as adding the suffix "is" or "if-I" to the end of an English word. So, for example, if tahar in the cal means to clean, to be clean, intransitive, then the PL means to cleanify, transitive, or to cleanse. Kadash, to be holy, PL, to holyize, to consecrate. Avar, avar in the cal, to die, PL, to deadify, or to destroy, or to kill. The second range of uses are intensive. So an intensification of the meaning in the cal could also indicate strengthening or repetition. So, for example, if kavar in the cal means to bury, kiber in the PL means to bury many people, to bury repeatedly. Sha'al in the cal means to ask, so she'el in the PL would mean to beg, to ask intensively. Shavar in the cal means to break, shiber in the PL means to shatter. Third range of meanings are denominative. This simply are forms of verbs that derive from original nouns. So typically we don't see these type of verbs in the cal, they form in the PL. So for example, the noun davar, meaning word, the PL verb derives from that noun, means to speak, diber. The noun kohen, which means priest, the PL verb is kehen, which means to act like a priest. There are other cases in which the PL stem is used for verbs that do not occur in the cal. So some verbs have their basic meaning in the PL and have no meaning in the cal. Sometimes we find verbs that occur both in the cal and in the PL without any real difference between the two meanings. And so either we're missing shading of the meaning, or this is simply a matter of preference or variation for different authors. In any case, when in doubt, you should look up the meaning in the PL. The easiest way to do that is to look in Kittel and Hoffer, although that is a fairly incomplete way to do it. The most effective way to do it is to look it up in your lexicon, the Brown Driver Briggs or BDB, and we will spend some time looking at the BDB as we begin doing more translation. So that is the PL stem. You now know the cal affix and prefix and the PL affix and prefix, and you know as well some variations in slightly irregular forms. So you now know the majority of the verbal system in 2 of the 3 major stems. So you're doing great. Do the exercises in the book for this lesson and keep translating Genesis 22, and I'll see you in class.